Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to set up the QX7, the FrSky QX7 to the Mobula 6. Okay, so we're going to set up this quadcopter and this transmitter to communicate with each other. We're going to set up all the inputs and mixers and all that stuff to get this thing to fly. And then we're going to go to Betaflight and make sure everything is correct. Everything's communicating so we can get off the ground. That's the intent of this video, is to get this thing to fly. Okay, we're going to set up channels so that we can use our 4 sticks. We're going to set up an arming switch. We're going to set up modes so we can fly angle, horizon, and acro. We're going to have flip over when crash or turtle mode so you can flip this thing over and not have to go chase after it. And then we're going to set up a beeper. Okay, that way if you crash behind the refrigerator, you run upstairs and look for it, you can flip a little switch and the quadcopter will beep for you. Okay, so we're going to get in here and we're going to set everything up to make that happen. Okay, now the board that I have in this Mobula 6 is the 3rd version, okay, V3. So let me zoom in here so you can see the board. So the board that I have in here is the Crazy Bee F4 FR Lite. So we have our quadcopter with the V3, the version 3 board in here, and we're going to go ahead and get everything set up. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and get channels set up. We're going to get everything done. In this quadcopter, the manufacturer says that it needs to be ran in, it's recommended in D8 mode. So what that means is you're going to have 8 channels. So we need to decide before we get into setting it up, what do we want this quadcopter to be able to do? Okay, there's 5 things it has to be able to do that we have no choice. So there's 5 channels that we're going to use right away. We're going to use 4 channels for our sticks. We're going to have channel 1 for our throttle, and then we're going to use another channel for yaw, we're going to use another channel for pitch, and we're going to use another channel for roll. The 5th channel that we're going to have to use is setting up a switch to arm it. Okay, and you can set any of these switches up. I'll show you how to set up any switch you want to do whatever you want. I'm going to set the switches up the way I like to fly. Okay, now the first thing that we want to do is we want to turn on our transmitter, start creating a model, and then plug this quadcopter in. But before we get into any of that, we need to do a continuity check on this. I recommend any component that you have, do a continuity check on it. I mean, you don't know what the quality control is on that certain time of date, whenever it came out, okay? So basically, in here, you have 2 pins, okay? So any of your quadcopters basically have a way to plug it in, right? So these 2 pins, you're going to need a way to get, okay? So if you don't have a meter that can do continuity, they're really inexpensive. I know people talk about smoke stoppers. I don't personally understand it. My electronics background goes well before smoke stoppers. I like to be able to see, because sometimes there'll be it won't be a dead short. It'll just be a bleed off, and you can see that with a meter. Okay, right now our meter says overload. Okay, so if we take these 2 leads. All right, see how that's beeping? And it goes down to like 0.2 or whatever. That's a dead short. When you touch those 2 leads together and it goes down all the way, that's a dead short, okay? So what we want to do is we want to plug this in to basically touching these 2 leads here. So you're going to put your hot lead, you know, on your hot pin. Doesn't really matter either way, but put your lead down in there without touching them together. And you're going to touch those 2 pins. You may hear, see, I heard that initial beep. Okay, that would be the capacitor package on this board charging up just for a split second. Sometimes you might not hear a beep, but you'll see the screen blip real quick. Okay, just while that capacitor charges up. Now I'm holding it on those pins, separated. You know, I'm not touching the 2 leads together. And it's still saying overload, okay? So that tells me that I don't have a short, okay? It's safe to plug a battery into that. If you hear that, okay, when you're touching those pins, take that thing, stick it in the back, stick it right back in the box and send it back. you're done. Don't even mess around with it. Because if there's a component short on here, you're going to plug your battery in, smoke it, or whatever the case may be. So before we get into anything, let's make sure we can plug a battery into it. Okay, go ahead and plug a battery in. Okay, and make sure that you hear these tones. Let me go ahead and unplug that and plug this back in so you can hear it. Okay, the first 3 beeps is your ESC's initializing. That sound is coming from these motors. These motors are vibrating at such a high frequency that it's actually making a sound. Okay, first 3 beeps is the ESC's booting up, and then the last 2 beeps is the flight controller and the ESC communicating. If you don't have those beeps, then you're not able to go any farther. Okay, then there's something wrong. Okay. So now that we've made sure that this is ready to go, we can plug a battery into it. We heard the audible sounds. We can continue. Okay, so we're going to grab our transmitter. Go ahead and power it up.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Running OpenTX firmware on here. I do not have the newest thing. Okay, January 2020 is when this is being made. I don't have the newest firmware on this radio, and there's a reason why. I don't want to get into that reason why right now. All right, so the first thing we need to do is get those first 4 channels, okay? The first 4 channels so we can get these sticks moving. So in your transmitter, if you click here, you're going to go to a model select screen. You may not have a bunch of models in your transmitter yet. So I'm just going to scroll down. I made a blank spot here. So you're just going to choose one, click on it, and it says create or restore model. So we're going to create, okay? Plain, delta, or multi. Well, this is a multi-copter, multi-rotor, okay? So we're going to choose that. Now, the 4 channels that we need to work with. Channel 1 is going to be throttle, okay? See throttle? So it'll be throttle, and hit page, and then roll will be assigned to channel 2. Pitch will be assigned to channel 3. Yaw will be assigned to channel 4, okay? Page again, it says long press to confirm. Oops, went a little too long. Now it says model 12. Okay, for you it might say model 1, model 01. Go ahead and hit page to go into that. Now see, it doesn't say model 12. Well, it's because it's expecting you to go ahead and name your model. You can name it whatever you want. Firecat, Mobula 6, whatever the case may be. You can name it anything you want. Click on it one time to initiate that line, and then scroll your wheel. I'm going to name it Mobula 6. Makes it easy, right? Long press to capitalize, and just scroll through here. Oops, I'm missing my E. This is how we go back. Click on it one time, again, and just go over to it, and then change that to whatever you need. Okay? You don't have to go through and redo the whole thing. Okay, hit exit, Mobula 6. Now, you can scroll down through all this stuff. We don't need to do anything in here, okay? We can scroll up a couple times, or counterclockwise on your wheel, and we go up into this area here. Now, the manufacturer has recommended D8, okay? That's what my instructions say, that D8 receiver module protocol is D8, okay? Now you see in here, it says internal RF. I don't have anything in here, okay? I don't have anything in here. We're not dealing with Crossfire. We're not dealing with R9. We're not dealing with any of that. We're dealing with the FrSky internal module that came in this radio. So we have internal module, mode D16. Manufacturer says D8. So go ahead and click on that. Scroll one time. See, it says D8. Go ahead and choose that. So now we have our 8 channels that we can use, and we're going to go ahead and bind the quadcopter. Okay, so go ahead and plug your battery in. If you're using this board, you can plug your battery in. Click on bind.
Telemetry lost.
All right. And then the bind button is over here next to motor 3, not to be confused with the boot button. Boot right there. We don't want the boot button. You have to look across from there, and there's a little bind button right in here. See that little button right there? That's the bind button next to motor 3. think that's 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, that's the button. Okay, so go ahead and click down on that button. Now you see the LED went solid. Now it's blinking. The green light's blinking. All right, click down on that.
Telemetry recovered.
Okay, unplug it.
Telemetry lost.
Plug it back in.
Telemetry recovered.
Now we can go check it. Go ahead and hit your page until you get over here to telemetry. Keep clicking page. See it says telemetry. Go down here to discover new sensors. See how something populated. I'm surprised that the Mobula 6, that little board is sending back telemetry. Okay, can I pause for just a second? If you don't know what that means, go ahead and stop discovering. Basically, telemetry is that flight controller has a built-in receiver, okay, that's sending information to the transmitter. If there's no telemetry, then you're only going to see all this information, your battery voltage, your amperage, all these statistical information that's generated while you're flying, you can have in your OSD. But it won't go to the transmitter without telemetry. Okay, the transmitter is just sending commands. That's it. But telemetry is where it can come back to the transmitter. So if you see here on the screen, you can see RSSI and you can see the voltage of this battery. Look, we had this plugged in for a little bit. I'm just under storage voltage. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug. Okay.
Telemetry
so
lost.
We're not plugged in very long here, okay? Let me plug in real quick and I can show you something here.
Telemetry recovered.
See the RSSI? If you cover up the quadcopter, see how that dropped down to 72, 74? It's kind of waving back and forth. And it's back up. Okay, so that means we're communicating. So we should have a good bind here. Go ahead and unplug it. We don't want the quadcopter plugged in very long. We'll get to that before we do beta flight. So we're done with the quadcopter right now. We're going to go back here and we're going to finish setting up our model. Okay, so if you hit page one time, page again, comes up here. Okay, so just hit page again. We're at the beginning. We don't need to do anything more in setup. To get this thing to fly, we're going to go ahead and page one time. Heli setup, we're not doing a helicopter. Go next. We're not flight modes, we don't need to mess with. Inputs, okay? Now, like I said, we had 4 channels that we're going to use for this. Now, our 4 channels, or channel mapping, is TAER. That comes in beta flight. We need to remember that, TAER. Okay, so our first 4 channels, technically we could fly this quadcopter right now, just needing these 4 channels to fly it. But in beta flight requires an arming, okay? Beta flight says, I have to have a human tell me that you're arming, okay? So we need another channel. And then anything you do, we're going to have to add more channels. But remember, we only have 8 channels to work with this little receiver that's built in. I don't know, the D8 is an older protocol. I'm not sure. It's just cheaper to manufacture, cheaper to deal with. But basically, we're going to go ahead and set up a switch for arming. So go over here to number 5. Click on that. And then input. So what input? Well, this is the 5th channel. So to make it easy on myself, you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to just go capital. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go 5. Okay? So it's the 5th channel. Like I said, you can name it what you want. But to make it easy, I'm going to name it A5. Name, arming. Okay? So I'm going to call this arm. Okay? Hold down for capital. Okay? Hit exit. And now it's named arm. So our 5th channel is going to be arm. Now what's going to make that arm? What are we going to do here to arm? I don't use stick commands to arm, okay? I use switches to arm. Now, what I want to arm is I want to be able to pull this switch all the way forward. You can do whatever switch you want, okay? So when you click down on that, see how it's flashing? That's the switch I want, SA. That's my SA switch. If you want this switch, SD, whatever, any switch you want, it'll recognize that switch. If you want this switch to be your arming switch, that's fine. But how I fly, if you want to call it like a, I don't know, raptor claw, I fly like this. So if I'm armed right now, when I'm flying, I can go like that and disarm. Okay, you want it to be something quick. Okay, so that's the switch I'm going to use to arm. So SA, okay? Doesn't matter which directions it's in. We're going to deal with that in Betaflight. So hit exit. We've set up that switch. So SA is the switch we're going to use. Go ahead and exit. Now, we got to do another switch, right? Because we want more things. We want this quadcopter to do more than just arm and fly around. We want to be able to do modes. So we want to be able to fly it in angle mode, which is real flat, and it just cruises along. It doesn't allow you to do much more of an angle than about like that, okay? And you can change that in Betaflight. You can make it pitch further in angle mode, but it always wants to center, okay? Horizon mode, okay? You can do tricks, you can do rolls, you can do flips, but it'll always fight you and get back to center. It'll always want to go level. Okay, and then in acro mode, any movement you make on the stick, and you let's say you just yaw a little bit, it'll go to that point. It'll stay there until you correct it. Okay, if you roll a little bit, it'll stop. It'll sit there at that position until you tell it to go the other way. Okay, and angle and horizon, when you center this stick, it'll want to flatten out for you. Okay. It makes it real easy to fly them with that on. Okay. Now, the other thing you got to make sure is that your accelerometer is calibrated. We'll talk a little bit about that in Betaflight, but the accelerometer on this is what makes it fly flat. Okay. If your accelerometer is calibrated at that angle, when you center that stick, that quadcopter is going to go to this. It thinks that's level. So it'll fly. It'll be all goofy. It'll want to fly away from you. It'll fly towards you backwards or whatever the case may be. So I like to use like a large roll of tape so that I can get these 4 motors to be completely level, and then I calibrate the accelerometer. Okay? If the board is out, that's basically what you're doing. The accelerometer on that board, you want it to be perfectly level when you calibrate it. And the other thing is, sometimes when you bang into stuff, the accelerometer is not in calibration anymore. So you have to recalibrate it however often, however bad of a crash you had. So before I go into way too much detail about that, but that's a big deal, that accelerometer, if you're going to fly in angle horizon mode, you're going to have to make sure that accelerometer is calibrated. And then the last mode is acro. No need for accelerometer. Your accelerometer doesn't have a play when you're in acro mode. The acro mode only does your stick movements, doesn't care about the accelerometer. So let's go ahead and set it up. So number 6 channel is going to be modes. Okay, click down, input, you guessed it, A6. Hit exit, go down, name it, and we're gonna name this mode. Okay, oops. Click on that. See how I do that. Okay, capital M. Hit exit. What's going to make the modes? Click on that to initiate it. And then this switch. Okay, that's the switch we want. Click down. Hit exit. Hit exit. So now we have 6 channels. Congratulations. Well, let's do another one. Click on that. We're gonna, you name it whatever you want. I'm going for A7. Makes it easy. So that's my 7th channel. And then down in name, we're gonna call this turtle. Okay. Betaflight calls it flip over when crash or whatever, but it's turtle mode, so that you can flip this over. Okay. I'm gonna put it on this switch here. The reason why I put it on that switch is because this switch, for me, this switch is out of my way. I'm not gonna, when I'm flying, I'm not messing with that switch. It's not getting in my way, okay? My fingers are down by these. I don't want the crash over when flip to be activated on accident. So I'm going to put it on a switch that's not an easy access switch, so to speak. You can do whatever you want, but that's the switch that I'm going to use, okay? So we're going to name this turtle. Okay, and then we're going to go to source. What's going to make it go into turtle mode? So actuate it, flip that switch, and then that's it, okay? So now hit exit. Now just for turtle mode, just so you know how to use it, when you arm your quadcopter and you're flying it around and you crash upside down, okay? Let's say you crashed upside down. What you have to do is you have to disarm your quadcopter, pull the turtle mode switch all the way forward, because that's where we're going to set it up in Betaflight. I'll show you a little bit more. But basically, you pull your turtle mode switch forward, you rearm the quadcopter, and then this is the stick that you're going to use. Okay? So when you pull forward, backwards, side to side, it's going to run two motors. These two, these two, these two, or these two. And depending, like let's say your camera is pointing at the floor, and you want to run your back two motors. Okay? So you want to pull back on this, and it'll make those two motors spin to flip that back over. Okay? But I want you to understand, when you're using turtle mode, it's really aggressive. It's sending a ton of current to your motors. If you have carpet or grass or something in the prop area, and that prop is going to strike that and not turn, there's a really good chance you're going to smoke your motor. Okay? So let's say you're upside down on the carpet, and you accidentally floor your, turtle mode really is aggressive. And this carpet is keeping these props from moving. There's a really good chance you're going to smoke them. Or if you're in grass and it's poking up through there. So I take turtle mode with a grain of salt. But I like having it. I have wood floors. I have concrete floor, whatever the case may be. So turtle mode's awesome because you don't have to go chase it every time you crash. But keep that in mind. Okay, so turtle mode is set up. Go ahead and exit. Okay, the next one is our 8th channel. We're going to set up our beeper. So input. And we're going to just call this beep. Okay. All right. And then the switch, any switch you want to choose, I'm going to go with this one. So when I flip that switch up, the quadcopter is going to beep. Those little teeny motors are going to make that sound and give us a little audible sound in the distance so we can find it, hone in on it, okay? So that's the switch we're going to use. I'm going to initiate that and flip that up, okay? So that's the switch we're going to use. Oops. Okay. Hit exit. Hit exit. All right, so we have all 8 channels set up. Okay, congratulations. You have all the channels, everything you need to be able to fly this thing. Okay, but now we need it to communicate in Betaflight. So we need to page over one time. And now we have 4 channels in our mixer screen. So we need to go down and initiate these channels, okay? So that Betaflight, everything, all the communication's going, okay? So just click in there, and what was the name that we used? Okay, A5. See the A5's right there. Hit exit, hit exit. Now see how it put it in there for you? Go to the next one. Okay, hit exit. Go to the next one. So now we have all our mixer channels finished. Okay. So now go ahead and page over. Now these are outputs. Okay. So in Betaflight, I'll show you in the receivers tab. We'll get to that in Betaflight. But basically, if you pull your sticks all the way down, then the first 4 here, see they're all 100. And then the second column here is when you have your sticks all the way up. Okay, this should be 1,000, and that should be 2,000. dead center should be 1500, okay? And I'll show you that in Betaflight, but keep this reference. All the way down 1000, all the way up 2000, okay? Click down on that, hit edit. You see how you got a minimum and a maximum? If you come down here to minimum, you can click on that, okay? So when you have your sticks all the way in the down position in Betaflight, you can modify that. You can change that to get it close as you can to 1000. And then when you're done, I'm not going to change it because I don't know yet. We got to go to the receivers tab and see what it does. You go to the maximum, click on that, and you can change that. Okay, so when you have your sticks all the way in the up position, you'll see in Betaflight it'll go 2011 or 2012 down to 2000. That's how to fine tune that. When you're doing multi-rotors, you don't want to use these trims. The trims on the face of your transmitter you don't want to use to make it fly level, okay? Or you don't use trims, okay? Because these trims will trim away your throw, okay? In a multi-rotor, we want 1000, 2000, okay? In the output screen, that's how we do it. But you only do that to the first 4, okay? Your sticks are your first 4, 7, because those are your switches, okay? We'll get into Betaflight, and I'll say some more things about that. Hit page over. Curves, we're not going to mess with curve screen. Logic switches, we're not going to mess with this. I had done a video previously, and I set up a logic switch for pre-arming, sticky switch. There was a discrepancy I'm looking into. I'm not sure if there's a software change, but this 3-way switch wasn't actuating, and it wasn't disarming, whatever the case may be. So I'm not going to get into logic switches on this video. Page over, special functions. This is a really cool screen, okay? So if you go over, let's say this switch right here, okay? And then you come over and you play track, okay? And then there's different things in here. There's all these different sounds that you can put in here. Let me pick one real quick. Okay, so let's say engines
armed.
Okay, when you pull that switch up, it'll give it a sound. Okay,
Engines armed.
you have to have the switch in the right. Let me go back here.
Engines armed.
Oops, save it there. Okay, so SA down or toward us. Now whenever you flip that, engines arms, okay? I mean, it's cool, it's geeky. But you can actually save a file on your computer and put it on your SD card, and you can save your own WAV file, so you can have Metallica play while you flip that switch, whatever the case may be. I'm not going to get into all that, but I wanted you to know that's there. Page, okay, telemetry. We plugged it in briefly, and that's the telemetry that came up, which is our RSSI and our battery voltage, okay? So that's pretty cool to have that. Go ahead and hit exit. Now our Mobulus 6 is done, okay? You notice I haven't had this plugged in the whole time. Don't have this thing plugged in all the time. We're ready. We have all the switches that we need. We have all of our mixer, everything's ready. We're ready to go into Betaflight and make the final settings so we can fly this thing. Okay, so we're done with our transmitter. Before we go to Betaflight, I want you to pay attention very closely to this, especially when you're new to setting things up. I purchased this fan from like Dollar General. You can get them at, you can get these cheap little fans. This fan costs a considerable amount less than the flight controller / ESC / receiver. I mean, that board is power packed with a lot of tech, and that thing is expensive. I think right now it's like $50 just for the board itself. If you plug this in and you leave it plugged in with no fan on it, you're going to burn it up. Okay? The VTX and receiver in that board warm up, and it gets pretty hot. So while I'm doing this tutorial, I have a fan blowing on it. Okay? So I just want you to know that if you don't have a fan blowing on it and keeping an eye on how warm it's getting, you're going to have to unplug it. Even in here, that's 5 volts, same as this battery. Well, actually, the 5 volts coming through the USB is more than that battery, okay? So you'll have to unplug it and wait until it cools off, plug it back in. If you leave that plugged in, it's going to burn it up, okay? I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. And let's head over to Betaflight. Alright, here we are in Betaflight. We have our quadcopter under a fan. And we're going to go ahead and plug in. And while we plug in, look up here. See this manual selection? When I plug in my quadcopter, it's going to say COM 9. If you don't have a COM channel, you go to choose here and you don't have a COM channel, then you're going to have to update and do some driver information so that your USB connects to your quadcopter. We're dealing with the quadcopter and the transmitter. I'm not dealing with the computer on this. So there's some videos out there, I'm sure. There's so many of them, I don't even bother making one. But if you don't have a COM channel, then you COM port, you need to look into this information here. Okay, click connect. Okay, I'm going to hide my, just to give you more space here. In setup, we're going to grab the quadcopter and we're just going to move it, you know, pitch forward, pitch back, left, right. See how fast it moves? Everything's good. That looks good to me. Okay, if you move your quadcopter rapidly and it's doing this, unplug it and plug it back in. Okay, if I'm moving it real fast side to side and it moves real slow, something ain't right. The other thing is if it's pointing like that and you're saying pitch forward, pitch back, you can point the camera towards the computer screen as level as you can get it and then click here. Okay, and that will realign it so it's nice and flat here. Now, at this point in time, you can do you can calibrate your accelerometer, but because I have mine tilted up, pointing into the fan, I'm not going to mess with that right now. Okay, you can do that later. That's how you calibrate your accelerometer. You want to make sure that that quadcopter is as level as it can be when you calibrate it. Okay, so I'm not going to mess with that right now. Go to your ports tab. Now, in this quadcopter, the receiver that's built into that board, okay, the manufacturer says do not turn on UART1 for the receiver. It says leave it off and don't enable anything else on UART1. Okay, UART2 is our smart audio. Okay, that's for us to be able to go in with a stick command and change things in our OSD goggles. Okay, so you do want that to be on. That's it for this screen. If you modified anything here or whatever, you'll have to hit save and reboot and reconnect. Okay, but this screen is set up the way it should be per instructions for that board, the Crazy Bee F4 Lite. Okay, now let's go ahead and go over here to configuration screen. Okay, so in configuration screen we see the first things that we look at, D-Shot 600. I'll be honest with you, I'm having more luck with D-Shot 300, so I'll probably end up changing that. But let's go ahead and run stock, see what happens. Motor stop. Don't spin the motors when you're armed. Okay, so that means when you arm your quadcopter, the motors spin right away. I don't want that. I want to be able to pull the throttle all the way down and my motors stop. I have way too many Barbie dolls and baby hair and synthetic hair and all that stuff. If I land in a pile, I don't want to wind a bunch of stuff up into my motors. So when I pull the throttle completely off, I want the motors to stop. So I'm going to turn that on. 10 seems a little high to me, but I'm used to seeing like 4.5, 5.5. But we'll leave that stock. And then over here, this is the props. Okay, you see the arrow? So they have already set up from the factory reverse prop configuration. So I'm hoping in BL Heli S they've already made sure that the ESCs, or they've wired it to run this way. But that's really cool. I like seeing that. But you see the arrow? So your prop needs to be put on your quadcopter in that order. Okay, if one of these are off, you know, you have one of them backwards, the thing's going to spin around and flip. It's going to be acting really weird. But that's what that is. So let's go ahead and scroll down here. Board alignment, remember we pitched forward, pitched back, left, right, and we made sure it was doing what it was supposed to, so we don't need to do anything here. Over here, 8K, 8K. I'm having better luck on 4K, 4K. So I think we'll go ahead and leave it and see how it does. I mean, these are 25,000 kV motors, so we'll see how that goes. Accelerometer trim. I don't have anything in here because I didn't do an accelerometer calibration. When you calibrate your accelerometer, you might have some information in here. Arming is already set up at 180 degrees. That means you can arm it upside down, backwards, sideways. That's good. If this isn't 180, make it 180. Craft name. Let's go ahead and props off. I don't mess with my camera or the RSSI. Now, we need to make sure our receiver, the built-in receiver on this quadcopter, is SPI RX support. On the board that I'm using, the manufacturer says FrSky D. That's for D8 mode. If you're using D16, then you need to choose FrSky X. Okay? So I'm going to leave that alone. It's already set up for me. I'm going to scroll down here. Everything looks good. I don't like air mode on all the time because I run an angle. I want anti-gravity on. Okay, so anti-gravity is a good thing. It's gonna, when we punch the throttle, it's gonna boost a portion of the PID loop to make sure that it can compensate. It can go with the flow, if you will. I don't want to get into too technical, but the anti-gravity is a good thing because that way when you bump your throttle, you know, jam it up, it you know, accelerate rapidly, the quadcopter should compensate for that with this turned on, and that way it's not going to flip out and hit the ground. Okay, I turn these on. Okay, so these are beepers, so we set up our beeper. That way you can, if your transmitter turns off, the quadcopter will beep, or if you lose connection between your transmitter and your quadcopter, the quadcopter, as long as it's plugged in and has enough juice, it'll sit there and beep. Okay, and then RX set, that's the switch for the beeper. So you crash behind the couch, yeah, you run upstairs and you got to look for it. You just flip the switch for the beeper and you can hear it. Those little teeny motors are going to make a little beeping sound for you. Okay, so we have, yeah, this is all fine. I'm just going to leave that for now. Okay, since we made changes, we're going to hit save and reboot. Go up here and connect. So we're done in configurations tab. Power and battery, just real simple. These batteries are really tiny. Okay, and then I charge my batteries to 4.3. So I'm going to go 4.4 so it's not flashing alarm in my OSD. I'm going to change that to 3. These batteries, they're really small. I'm using a 300 milliamp 1S battery. They're going to sag pretty easy. So I don't want warnings going off all the time. But if I'm just meandering around not paying attention, at least I'll have a little warning flash in my OSD if it gets below 3. So that's a good thing. When you land your quadcopter, you want that voltage to go up to like 3.6, 3.63, something like that, and that's a good voltage. After you land, unplug and check it. 3.5 is kind of where you want it to be. You don't want to fly these very much down from 3.5 at a rest, when it's resting, not plugged in and flying. Okay, 3.5 is about where you want it. But while you're flying and doing punch outs and stuff, you're gonna go below 3. Okay, click save. And then we'll go over to, I'll show you the PIDs. Okay, so that's the PIDs that I have on here. And I'm not going to change any of that for this video. So we can go over to receiver. Alright, in receivers tab, okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to throttle up, throttle down, yaw left, yaw right, pitch forward, pitch back, yaw left, yaw right. Okay, you see how this is not right? Throttle, that's roll. What's up with that? Okay, in the receivers tab, you have channel mapping. You remember when we first set the quadcopter up multi-rotor, and I told you that these are the first 4 channels, and they're in a TAER configuration. Okay, in channel mapping, we need to make sure that that matches our setup from the beginning. Okay. Okay, so throttle all the way up, throttle all the way back. Okay, throttle all the way down, throttle all the way up. And then pitch forward, pitch back, roll left, roll right. Okay, everything looks set up right. Okay, so that channel mapping matches our first, when we first set it up. Okay, in the multi-rotor, and said yes, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. Okay, so that's right there. Here's the thing we want to pay attention to here is our AUX channels. Okay, those 4 channels that we set up. So we have arming, and then we set up flip over when crash, and our modes and all that. Okay, so let's arm. Okay, so that's AUX 1. Our modes channels. So horizon, angle, horizon, acro. Okay, and then we had flip over when crash. Okay, so that's AUX 3, and then beeper. Okay, so AUX 4. So now we need to remember those AUX channels. Okay, write them down if you have to, because when you go into the mode screen, you need to remember that. But I wanted to real quick, both sticks all the way in the bottom left, sticks all the way in the top right. See that 2012? Remember the output screen in the transmitter where you can adjust those first 4 channels? That's why. See that one is 1006. You can calibrate your transmitter and get these a little bit closer, but basically that's how you get 2000 all the way across the board, is adjusting that output screen, those first 4. Okay? Okay? So you can play around with that and just hold your sticks all the way in the down position and modify one of them. You'll see which one it is. And you just do it'll be 8 of them. You know, you're going to have 4 channels you're going to go in and edit, but there will be 8 weights total, 4 mins and 4 maxes. So when you do the mins, pull it all the way down to the left, and when you do the maximums, push it all the way up to the right. And that way you can get it adjusted nice and sweet, and you don't use those trims on your front of your transmitter. Okay, so whatever changes you made in here, you need to hit save before you go anywhere else. Make sure your quadcopter is not getting too hot. So now let's go over here to modes. We're going to remember our AUX channels, right? Go to modes, add range. Okay, oops, see it says auto, flip your arm switch. Okay, it automatically chose AUX 1. So now when you pull your switch to where you want it, whatever switch it was that you used, put your switch in the position that you want your quadcopter to arm. I have my switch all the way toward me, so I'm going to slide this bar over, shorten it up a little bit here. Okay, and then I'm going to hit save. See how that came up now? So you got to hit save to make the command actuate. If you're doing this and you're like, why is this not working? Well, you got to hit save first. Okay, so now when I disarm, see how it went down there, and I arm, it goes up here in the middle, it's right there. Okay, so when I disarm, it's off. When I arm, it's on. That's how that works. So now we need to add a range for our next AUX channel. Okay, so both of these, we're gonna have all 3. Why not? Auto, remember the switch that we set up for our modes? So right now, all the way back, that's where I want it for angle mode. When I'm flying in angle mode, I want it there. Okay. Shorten that up a little bit there. And then click the switch. So that's horizon mode. So right here is horizon mode. Now, Betaflight, if you don't set these modes up in Betaflight, you don't have a switch set up. Okay, when you flip that switch all the way up here, it's acro. In Betaflight, if you don't set up angle or horizon, your quadcopter automatically flies in acro mode all the time. Okay, so let's go down here, scroll down a little bit, and we're going to go find the beeper. Okay, that way when you crash behind the refrigerator, you can find it. So it says auto. We're going to flip the switch for beeper, so that's on AUX 4. Now, when I want to turn my beeper on, that's where I want my, you can hear that switch in the background. I'm going to put my switch where I want it. That's where I want that switch when I want it to beep for me, okay? I'm going to shorten that up just to force a habit. Okay, so I flip the switch off, no more beeping. Okay, so hit save. So now that's going to actuate for us, okay? The last one is flip over when crash. Right here, add a range. Okay, now that switch that we set up, so I want this to be all the way on. Okay, so when I flip that switch all the way forward, I'm initiating flip over when crash mode, or turtle mode. Okay, hit save. So turn it off, turn it on. Okay, and that's it. So we have all our switches that we need to fly it. Alright, one thing I want to mention about the modes tab is if you go down here. Alright, there's one last thing that we need to do, and this is optional, okay? This is something that you can do is with air mode, okay? So we want to add a range for air mode. Now, I want my air mode to be on the same switch as my, go over here to auto, the same switch that I use for my modes. So your angle, horizon, and acro. So that's auxiliary 2, remember up here, angle, horizon, auxiliary 2. So when I flip this to acro, so if I'm flying in an area with a high enough ceiling that I can fly acro, and I'm doing tricks, you know, you got to get a little altitude when you first start out. You got to have some altitude to do some flips and rolls and barrels and all that. But you're in acro mode, you want air mode on, because when you chop your throttle, you don't want your props to stop spinning. Okay, so you see over here when we're in air mode or acro mode. So we want to slide this over, and then I'm going to shorten it up. I don't want acro on in horizon, but you can put it on in horizon too when you're doing tricks and stuff, because if you pull your throttle off, the quadcopter will kind of waller through the air. But see, when I'm on angle mode or horizon mode, when I'm racing, I'm bumping into things. I'm in the house, I'm flying around in the basement, I'm going through chairs and all that stuff. When you bump into stuff, sometimes air mode will make the quadcopter just absolutely go berserk. So when I'm in an area flying acro and I've got a little more space, I'd like to have that on. So hit save. See how it actuated there.
Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered.
Got my quadcopter sitting too close here. Okay, so now it's on, and then when I go to angle mode, okay, I don't have air mode on, so it's less likely to go crazy, because when I'm racing, I bump into something, I want to recover really quick. I don't want air mode, you know, spooling the props up real quick on me because it's in a weird position. Okay, I hope that makes sense. But that, you know, we were done, but here's a little option for you, okay, before we go into the OSD here. Okay, so just hit save if. Alright, now an OSD screen, this is when you put your goggles on. All this information, you can pick all this information. When you rub over top of them, there's a little box that shows up that tells you what it is, and you can set this up any way you want. Remember how we put the craft name in, props off? It shows up in your OSD screen. And then the VTX channel, you know, I like to have that. So when you're racing, people know, when they look through the goggles, they know who's racing, okay? And then, you know, your different modes, stability or angle mode, it'll be up here, so you can tell, like, why is this thing acting so funny? Well, you got it in angle mode or something like that. Okay, so you can put all kinds of junk in your screen where you can't even see where you're going. So set this up any way you want, but this is how I have mine set up. Okay, I didn't do anything in here, so we're not worried about that. Now go to CLI and type in dump, and then hit enter. Okay, so this has all the information, everything you just did, all the setup and everything. The memory of this quadcopter is right here. So when you grab all this information, okay, all the way up, all the way to dump, okay, and you copy to clipboard, save it to a note file, and that way, if anything were to happen, like your battery goes down too far and for some reason the board resets to default, which has happened to me once, which is quite aggravating, by the way. We'll see if they come out with a fix on that pretty soon. But that way you can just go in here and paste that dump file right in here, and then click save. You know, type in save and then enter, and it'll automatically load all that stuff all at once. It's nice to have, so you want to have that file. But that's pretty much it. We're done with Betaflight. We're ready to go back to the bench. All right. That Betaflight, it's something fun, isn't it? And lots to learn. Okay. So we have our transmitter set up, and we have Betaflight all set up, and we have our quadcopter off, and we've made sure, you know, we can check and make sure that that board's not too warm. But we don't want to plug it into the battery now and start messing around with it if that thing is really warm. So we should be all set up. We can go ahead and put a battery in it. We already checked the continuity. Okay. All right, get our battery in here. Okay, plug it in. Now wait a minute. Shouldn't we take the props off? I mean, I'm an advocate. Take your props off when you're working on the bench. But this is a Mobulus 6. I mean, the props the size of my thumbnail. Okay, so any other case, I would say take it outside or whatever. But I mean, we are dealing with the smallest quadcopter I've had in my hand. Okay. So now we have our throttle all the way down. We can go ahead and arm the quadcopter. Okay. I'm gonna back up because if this thing flips into my hand, I don't want a sore spot on my knuckle. Okay. So disarmed.
Telemetry lost.
Okay.
Telemetry recovered.
Too close here. See that beeper switch? So those motors are vibrating, making a sound so you can hear it. It's not real loud. I mean, if you fly this thing outside and it gets too far away from you, you're not going to hear it. Okay. Flip over when crash. And modes. Okay. You get the point. All right, we're going to arm it. We're going to bring the throttle up nice and slow just so it doesn't... Make sure everything works. Oh man, is this thing little. This thing is so tiny. This thing is so tiny. Okay. All right. So, too much fun. This little guy here has the ability to flip over when crash, okay? Let me show you real quick. It's flipped over. Let's say, you know, the camera's here, so it's facing down. So in your goggles, you'll be able to see that camera like almost touching the floor, right? And you remember what I said about grass and carpet and everything? But what you do is you disarm your quadcopter, flip that turtle mode switch all the way up or whatever switch you used, and the position that you told it in Betaflight to actuate, okay? Then you're going to arm the quadcopter. Now, there's nothing happening with throttle, okay? There's a little bit of yaw in here, okay? It's not as aggressive as this one, okay? This is the stick you use for turtle mode. See, we're upside down and the camera's pointing into the floor. So we want to come back, okay? We want to run the back two motors, okay? Now, what happens is those motors are in reverse. So they're blowing the opposite way, okay? See how it doesn't even move, okay? You got to really goose it, okay? You can run your front ones to flip it over, okay? I don't want to do that on my workbench, okay? But that's Guess I'll do it anyway, huh? But that's how you flip it over. Now, you heard those motors just screaming to get it to flip over. Like I said, if you have grass or carpet or anything holding that prop from being able to spin, you're going to smoke the motor, okay? But that's how turtle mode works. So you disarm, run your turtle mode switch to the off position, rearm, and you're ready to fly, okay? Hey, I hope this helped you out. I hope this gets you in the air, and I hope that all of this made sense to you. And I tried to go slow enough to make it make sense. But if you have any questions, hit me up in comments. I really appreciate your time. And if this helped you out, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If it didn't, and give me a thumbs down. Let me know. I won't make these anymore. But I hope that this helps you out and answers a lot of questions I'm seeing online right now. Hey, have a good day and enjoy the breeze.